Hey, how you doing? It's been a while since I've been back on my page. I've since gotten a brand new job. I work at our local credit union, and I've really been working here about a month and a half now. I've really grown to love my job here. I've had a lot of fun, met new people. My hours are better. My life's a lot less stressful than it was, but I do work now in the financial industry, something that I've kind of always wanted to do in its own way. But I finally have gotten that opportunity. So today I want to discuss something. Don't ever believe I finished up on the baby steps, but I'll come back to those on a different time. I want to talk about the class difference and why there are several different types of classes in the financial ring. So, the first one you're going to deal with, you've got the lower class, then the second is the middle class, and of course the upper class, if you really just want to make it simple and divide it into three categories. We learn about wealth and how to build our wealth, but here's the problem. A lot of people just do not build their own wealth. And so here's kind of a little bit of an explanation why people are in their category, in that one of those three categories, and why they do or they don't see growth. So we'll start with the lower class. You always hear that the poor are getting poorer and the rich are getting richer. Well, here's why. Here's the poor. We'll start with this lower class. Of course, these are normal people. We're not calling them a lower class people. Just their income category, their net worth category. This is the lower class. Okay, these are people who, really they're on a tight financial budget. They don't have a high income. They don't have a lot of assets, and most of the assets they own money on. This is probably the best simple definition for it. Just low income, low net worth, low assets. So here's why they always say that the poor are getting poorer. Most of the time when you're poor is generally because you don't necessarily have the best mindset of money. It's not that they're stupid. It's not that they don't have any sort of knowledge whatsoever. It's just that they don't know how to properly handle finances. So, for example, when they go buy a car, they just figure they're going to make payments on it because that's all that they can afford to do. They can't, they just don't have the ability to pay cash. So, really, things like that, when they buy their house, they put the minimum amount down, they make the minimum payments for the longest terms, that's really the holdup here. Another problem that they face is that they don't budget. They just take their money and then they spend it, and they just don't have a set budget. One of the earliest things I learned in my financial life is that you have to have a budget to stay organized. And this is something that the average lower class person does not do. Now, other contributing factors could be a million things. It could be their unwillingness to work. It could be the fact that they just aren't able to have a higher income. It could mean a lot of different things. Now, the reason, again, why the lower class tends to stay in the lower class is because they just don't know how to have a grasp of money. They don't have the concept of how it works and how they can increase their wealth, which is why they continuously get into this trap of spending all their money and letting their net worth and value go down by consistently getting into debt, into depreciating assets and not appreciating assets, and also making payments instead of paying cash. Now, you get to the middle class. Okay, the middle class, you could be in a good position where you make decent money, but you might not necessarily make a ton of it. Okay, but now most of these people are probably doing somewhat well. They might have a house, they have nicer vehicles, yada yada, the story. This is where most people are going to fit. They're going to fit in the middle class. Okay, so this is a hard category really to find simply. We may just have another category for it altogether. But I think of the middle class as those that have a grip on their finances, but they're not rich, but they're not poor. Okay, so they have a general idea. Most of these people, some live on a budget, some do not. This is where you're going to get that middle ground category. Now, here's what separates the middle class. Okay, you've got those who are never going to change. They're going to live out the same lives the same way all the time. Okay, you got these people, so they're never going to really truly increase their net worth, and they're never really going to lose their net worth. Okay, so whenever they pay off their nice vehicle, they're going to go out and buy another one, and when that one's paid for, they're going to trade that in and buy something else. Okay, it's just a continual cycle, and they're never really going to get anywhere. Now, where the smaller percentage of these people who actually go from middle class to upper class, these people are the ones who are thinking about the future. Recently, I've been reading the book The Millionaire Next Door. It's a phenomenal book. I've learned so much from it. I've learned about what the average millionaire is like, and we can go into another discussion on that too, honestly. But, the average millionaire, they read, they work hard, they really time out and plan everything. I mean, their daily schedules, their weekly, their monthly, annual schedules. They have a budget. They plan for 20 years down the road, 40, 50 years down the road, even when they're going to retire, depending on when they want to retire. They save for investing. They have a budget. They pay cash for their things because they know that they need to save for those things. And they're going to save money in the long run by saving. And they think about these things ahead of time. So the middle class who eventually changes to upper class, this is that kind of person. They realize they need to save money. They realize they need to have a budget. They realize that in order for them to grow, they can't use all of their resources. They can't let all their resources out as soon as they come in. All right, you have to hold on to some of those resources. So that is how the middle class, they either will maintain their life or they upgrade it. Now, here's where the wealthy come into play. So now we're going to move over into the upper class, okay? So the class system here, we're talking about people who are probably into the six-figure incomes and higher. Probably at least $300,000 a year or more is what they're bringing in, generally speaking. Some might even consider it higher than that. And, I don't necessarily want to set the bar for that, but you get the idea what the upper class is like, okay? They generally have a lot more money than most people. They've got a very nice income. They're very comfortable. They can drive the nice cars, live in the big houses. And here's what they do. As we ask, how do the poor get poorer and the rich get richer? Well, we know that the poor get poorer because they're not financially set. They're not stable in their finances and they don't have a budget. Now, here's where wealthier people maintain and build their wealth. First off, they do have more resources. So, when you make $700,000 a year, it doesn't take $700,000 to live a regular life. And a lot of wealthy people realize this. And so by the time that it's all said and done, they may have a couple $100,000 left over at the end of the year. That would be amazing for somebody like me who just doesn't have lots and lots of assets or high net worth. Having $200,000 a year, they can go invest that every single year. And at 10%, I mean, they'd be making millions and millions of dollars years down the road. See, another thing that these upper class people do is they hire accountants, they hire CPAs to just help them with their finances. So one of the biggest thing that you can find about those in the upper class is most of them are entrepreneurs. They own their companies, they own their businesses. And then another thing that we find is that they put a lot of their assets and money into tax sheltered types of investments. So, just for example, and I don't know the tax laws or the tax codes and what can be written off, what can't be, but for example, maybe rental properties. Okay, there's a lot of ability to write things off with your rental properties or donations or their businesses. There's so much that they know to write off or to invest in that's going to have little to no tax involved in it. So instead of paying a couple $100,000 in taxes, they might be spending $20,000 or $30,000 in taxes as opposed to the 200, and that's a huge difference there. That's $170,000 that could make a difference of realized income there. So that's really how the wealthy get wealthier. They know how to put their money into places that are not going to be heavily taxed, and they act upon it. And they let that investment grow and grow and grow. and that's how their net worth grows. I look at myself and where I'm at right now. I'm not in a place where I can do all this tax sheltered stuff. I do my 401k, I give to my church, but that's really about all I've got. So that's going to be just a brief explanation of the classes, maybe an explanation of why, of understanding how the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. I'm a huge Dave Ramsey fan, always have been, always will be. And I think he's got the perfect course that'll really help anybody in any class, just get real financial control. Another thing I should mention is most of the upper class people have a good grip on their finances. Some of them don't. Some of them make too much money for them to actually even be hurt. But, most of these people have a hand on their finances, and that is part of the reason why they're so wealthy. So for those that could be watching this that are in the lower class, maybe just learning about Dave Ramsey and his course, Financial Peace University, it might not be a bad idea to look into and just find out how you can set a budget, how you can get yourself out of debt, how you can build your wealth. That's really the starting place, and you have to work from there. I had the benefit of starting at a younger age, so thankfully I didn't start out with any kind of negative equity or negative net worth, and I've been able to grow off that. I'm not going to discuss my personal information here, but I have seen my net worth grow since I've been married and moved out on my own, which was about 9 months ago. I'm not worth millions of dollars, but when I started out, I was worth this much money. Now I'm worth this much money. And you can see that growth, and you can look back. And now that I'm consistently tracking my net worth, I can actually see how every single month that net worth just continues to rise and rise. Partially because of investments, partially because of my saving. So really, you gotta learn to get a grip on your finances, set a budget, and figure it out. So that's all for today. Thanks. See you guys.